I'm pleased to be here as I'm pleased that you can be here today too. As you can see, this is our third meeting being conducted on the Zoom platform. I previously mentioned that our management committee meetings are also conducted on Zoom. And last week at our meeting, we concluded that we don't see being able to hold in-person monthly general meetings for the balance of this year. Social or physical distancing is still a critical factor in managing the COVID-19 risk. Recently entering stage 3, that additional restrictions have been lifted in Burlington. And this time we focus on adapting to a new normal. Many of the activities and businesses in our community are again accessible to the public while following strict public health guidelines. And I encourage each of you to continue to practice physical distancing and follow local guidance when it comes to wearing facial coverings to reduce the risk of COVID-19 to others and support our local businesses. BC's health leader, Dr. Bonnie Henry, had some simple advice. Live life sensibly and to the fullest. Be kind, be calm, be safe. We'll continue to review the situation for our gatherings as time goes on, and we'll always keep our members advised. True innovation and agility has come to the forefront in transforming our in-person programs to our ongoing virtual member events within a short period of time. It's my privilege to work with such a member-focused and dynamic team. I want again to recognize and thank our Zoom masters, Bob Dickinson, Gary Hindley, and Bob Lalonde. I want to share a personal story on a lighter side about something that I learned from my father. My father operated restaurants when I was young, and he had the usual entrepreneur's unique bookkeeping system. He placed a cigar box on each side of the cash register. In the left-hand box, he kept his bills to be paid, and in his cash register, and the cash register, he held the daily cash receipts. When he paid a bill, he transferred the paid receipt to the cigar box on the right. Then, when I was a young accounting student, I asked him how he calculated his profits, and he said, well, when I got off the ship from Greece, I had nothing but the pants I was wearing. Today, you and your brothers are educated, you're professionals and businessmen, and your sister is a well-known teacher of music. Your mother and I have a car, a home, and we eat steak twice a week. Everything we had is paid for, so you just add all that up, put it together, subtract the pants, and there's your profit. I can't hear anyone laughing. Now, on a sad note, we recently learned that Ross Anderson, a 24-year member of our Probus Club, having joined in 1995, passed away earlier this year. I'd ask for a moment of silence, and may his memory be eternal. Thank you. I'm also sorry to inform you that one of our charter members, Willard Price, now age 95, recently had a fall and was admitted to hospital in Oakville. I'm sure we all wish him a speedy recovery. You may also recall that this club was chartered in February 1993, so Willard has been around a long time. If anyone has knowledge of one of our members becoming ill or otherwise, please contact our membership chairman, Bob Dickinson, or me. We were informed yesterday by the police coordinator for the Crime Stoppers of Halton that they are hosting a shred event fundraiser on Saturday, September 12th 2020 so that we can get rid of any of our classified documents at home. That will be held between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. at their offices on the North Service Road near Bronte Road. More information will be sent out in our September newsletter. I would now like to turn the meeting over to Kevin Harrar to introduce our speaker for today's event. Kevin, take it away.
I'm just unmuting myself. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Everybody? Okay, great. So, good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest this morning, George Sanford. As I was talking earlier, if you belong to the Senior Center in Burlington, you will know George. He's a living legend. That's the only way to describe him, a living legend. He's been teaching there for, I think he told me, nearly 20 years. He teaches in Burlington and Oakville. Just to give you an idea of some of the courses, the range of courses that he teaches, I'll throw a few out here. Music and Art of Great Cities. Wow. History of Fashion. Man and Mythology. World Architecture. History of Dance. You name a subject in the arts, George can cover it, let me tell you. And I've attended a bunch of those. Now, just a few excerpts from his bio. He's multifaceted, this guy. Unbelievable bio. George started out in the record business. He worked at Sam the Record Man downtown. Played in a number of bands. He was a drummer, first on the drums, and then he went onto keyboards. Was a professional DJ for a time. Then he had a career in dance. And I think somebody mentioned the moves. He had a move thing going. He moves. He's like Muhammad Ali, moves like a butterfly. He worked as a fashion photographer. And I'm told, I'm not sure about this, George will have to confirm, that he did some modeling work on the side. I don't know exactly what that was, but anyway. He was a variety radio and TV host for many years. He started the musical theater program at Sheridan College, an artistic director there. And in between, he taught in the Grand Erie public school system for a number of years. I don't think it was, you know, fantastic at the end there, but he hung in. And in between times, he toured as a guide, an arts and opera guide, going all over Europe. And I can tell you from personal experience, he was a great guide. He was fantastic. So anyway, today George is going to regale us on a talk of about the arts of the summer. Summer Breezes, I think he calls it. That's the title of his talk. We asked George to record the presentation ahead of time because we were a bit worried about technical glitches that might show up, and he's done that. But he's here, and he'll be here for the Q&A at the end of the talk. So now, as Jim mentioned, I've been told to say this, please make sure that you're in speaker view. Okay, speaker view. So that means gallery on the right-hand side. You should see gallery. Stay in speaker view. So George, over to you to introduce your talk.
Thank you, Kevin. Can you hear me? Okay.
I've got to unmute myself. George, we can hear you. You go for it.
George, you're back on mute. George, you're back on mute. You got to go off of mute.
Guys, this is new to me, so I have to. Are you all? I'm okay now?
You're good now.
Okay, fantastic. I've done so many things, thanks to Kevin letting you know that I've forgotten what I'm doing today. No, I'm just kidding. I have a non-academic approach to everything that I've ever done in my life. And that is the case with this presentation. I hope you will enjoy it. It's all the great photography and paintings that I looked for online that I could put together to create this Summer Breezes program. And I hope it will give you almost 40 minutes worth of relaxation. I will speak about each of the images as we go along. And then if you want to make notes along the way, free do so. And at the end, I will take questions and answers and comments just fire away. Beyond that, I don't think I have anything else to say. I think the presentation will speak for itself, especially in this particular time that we're in right now. And some of the cottage images, you might just say, damn, I need to get to that cottage. Hopefully that will bring a smile to your face. Thank you, everybody. And I turn it over to whoever's in charge of making that presentation come to all of you beautifully. Thank you.
With you. Today we're going to look at images and hear music that represents summer, and what a glorious summer we're having. This first painting we're looking at is a gorgeous work by David Cox. David Cox was an American. This is called The Real Sands. And it was in this time period in the 19th century that people suddenly started spending more time on the beach, actually sunning themselves. Up until then, it really wasn't important and people avoided it. Well, we love trying to sun ourselves on the beaches, don't we? Although right now we have to do it with a certain amount of care and caution. Great painting by David Cox called Real Sands. We're going to For most of you, this is probably an incredibly familiar painting called Sunday Afternoon on the Island of La Grande Jetée by Georges Seurat. Georges Seurat, of course, the great French pointillist painter, and this is probably the most famous painting that he ever did, and he only did about a half a dozen or so. There was also a great musical written by Stephen Sondheim about the story of this particular painting. But here you have typical people in Paris on a Sunday afternoon, sunning themselves, sailing their homemade boats, just lying on the grass, lying in the shade. You've got a woman with a monkey that holding it by a chain, holding the umbrella. All of these people enjoying a lovely summer's afternoon in Paris. How wonderful is that? I picked this side specifically because, well, this represents beach, sand, summer, and we tend to play a lot of games, more games maybe than in the winter. We're at the cottage, we're at home, and of course in this case, you happen to like this game where the letters are really important, and things like Z and Q and so forth and so on, and sunglasses, and of course those lovely fluffy clouds that you can see in the back. This represents summer, if anything does, and in some cases we can do that. I've been up north a couple of times, and there's beaches that are quiet, there's nobody around. It makes for a delightful and interesting day. And so here's another great example of what summer absolutely looks like as far as we're concerned. Well, this is a very iconic and very, very famous painting. This is by the British painter David Hockney. You may know David Hockney for his wonderful designs for opera, but he also is an incredibly amazing painter. In fact, nowadays he's taking photographs and putting them together and then painting according to on the photographs. It's quite amazing. This is called Big Splash. And let's face it, how does not like to do cannonball as you go into the water? And here we have, there's no human being present. We don't see anyone. All we see is the splash left by someone who's gone off the diving board into a beautiful pool, or obviously somewhere in either Arizona or California, as you can tell by the mid-century modern design of the house and a couple of little palm trees. This is a beautiful, up, happy painting. Put a smile on your face, like a good, beautiful day with a blue sky. And I think that that's what's meant by this particular painting by David Hockney. He spent about 2 or 3 years in California in the 50s, and he absolutely loved the place. He liked the pools, he liked the mid-century modern architecture, and this is a very, very good example of that. A great American painter. Indeed he is. Edward Hopper. And Edward Hopper was a painter that liked to demonstrate and show us the relationships that people who are together but don't have a relationship. The separateness, and of course that kind of goes very well right now with our year of cholera that we're in the middle of. This particular painting is called Second Story Sunlight. And warm summer morning, the sun is coming down, the young lady is out on the balcony, she's got an older style two-piece bathing suit, and the older gentleman sitting there reading the morning newspaper, taking a coffee, and tanning. She's tanning herself. And that's something we do now in this weather as well, is get out and get some sun. Let's face it, March and April were rough in terms of weather, and now we can get out, we can lie out and gather some sunshine, make it good for us. You know, you might have to slather on a lot of sun protectant, but that's beside the point. The fact is, get out and get some sunshine, whether you're walking or lying down or sitting out reading a newspaper. Of course, this painting tells us a lot more as well, that this older gentleman and this young girl, here they are first thing in the morning. They've obviously spent the evening together on a second story of probably maybe a rented cottage or a rented house, and there might be water down to the right-hand side. Again, the blue of the sky representing some of that forest. But there's no connection between these two people. They are separate from one another. And I think that's very important to understand as well. We've had to spend the last 4 months in that state, haven't we? Separated, trying to enjoy the weather, because let's face it, summer is short enough as it is. This is a good example of that. And hopefully you can see that in this painting. A tremendous painting by Edward Hopper, and great example of being separated and yet together. Well, this painting is by Vincent van Gogh, as you probably all know, and one of 5 paintings he did called Sunflowers. Now, some of you may not realize that this particular painting of sunflowers, all 5 of them, actually have to do not just with the brightness of the yellow of the sunflowers, but also have to do with death. Because you'll notice that there were parts of this plant that are alive, and there are parts of this plant that are not. There are also, some of these paintings have the word Vincent written on the jug, and there are other parts that do not. Very, very important to understand the value of this particular painting. But if we take it at face value, bright sunflowers, which of course we get in the summertime, field after field after field of them in Ontario, or especially of course in France, and the delightful colors. Again, summer's about colors. We spend the whole time in the wintertime dressing in brown and black, and just awful, because outside it looks brown and black. But when we get to summertime, colors excite us, colors wake us up, colors make us feel alive. They make us feel like, yes, I'm going to go out there and throw on a fancy scarf or put on a colored shirt or whatever it might be. You feel better when you do that. You feel like getting out and participating. You feel more human, in fact. And I think that's really important. And this is what Van Gogh is trying to show us here in this remarkable painting. And when you take this from a man who suffered terribly with mental illness, absolutely incredible the fact that he could come up with these gorgeous, gorgeous paintings that had a sense of positiveness to them as well as a sense of negative. And I think that those are the best paintings. They're the best stories. You probably know yourself. Any book that you read, and reading in the summertime, reading a book is the thing we tend to like to do. The negative and the positive, the light and the dark in a book, make the book interesting, make the book vibrant and come alive. And this is a great example of that by Vincent van Gogh. And of course, the summer blooms. My goodness, don't we love our summer blooms? Absolutely. Here's a painting by the great secessionist painter Gustav Klimt. Of course, if you know anything about the secessionist movement in art, it was primarily in Vienna. And Gustav Klimt, Oskar Kokoschka, Egon Schiele, they formed this movement of painters to secede from the old stovepipes, you know, the old hats, you know, pictures of little dogs and cats. And they said, no, paintings should have an overall emotional effect with us. They should go deeper than just on the surface. You know, so, because a lot of paintings are just like fancy wrappers at Christmas time, aren't they? But you know that the real presence on the inside. And this is what this painting represents. Here is an absolute plethora, oh my goodness, a banquet of flowers and color of a garden somewhere. In fact, there's so much of it that the definition of the garden, the definition of the plants is not really there. And if you look at some people's English gardens, maybe right here in Burlington or Oakville or wherever, you'll notice that the best gardens have all of these flowers everywhere. It's like a Monet garden, eh? It's like the color, the riot of color. He too, of course, has sunflowers along with a whole host of others, and I'm sure anyone out there in the audience who knows their plants probably could tell us and name most of the flowers in this painting. I love it just simply because this is what Klimt wanted to say about the world around him. Also, this painting was done later in his life, 1916. He died in 1917 of the Spanish influenza, much like the cholera we're facing these days. And it really, really is important to understand the value and the beauty of this particular painting. Gustav Klimt, you probably are familiar with his The Kiss, done by him, and mostly human beings in his paintings, women mostly. But this is one of the rare paintings which has just the wonderful parts of nature that he saw in his home of Austria. Well, you can't get any more summer than this, can you? A dock, paddles, life jackets, two gorgeous Muskoka chairs, and that gorgeous view. And for some people, myself included, I've been able to get up to the cottage a couple of times, and it's been really lovely. It's looked just like that every day, and it's fantastic. It really is a world away at times. There's no hydro lines, there's no hydro poles, there's no cell phones being used, there's no television on. I've been to the cottage twice, and there's a huge TV, and I don't remember it being turned on once. Everyone is out on the deck, everyone's out on the water, everyone is absolutely enjoying what summer has to offer us, and this is a great example. And of course, those chairs are quite comfortable. They're more comfortable than they look. Once you slip and slide into one, you kind of just want to sit there, have someone bring you a nice cold drink, and enjoy the day. You don't even want to get in a canoe and paddle, although you can, and that's one thing, of course, that we do in this time of year, and put on the life jackets, or the Mae West, as they used to be called, and it's quite a remarkable scene, and this is being repeated over and over and over again up north. It's fantastic, and the more we get more comfortable with getting out and going away from our house, the more this sort of thing will take place. Absolutely amazing. And that scene is being repeated over and over again. Think of how many of you spent your childhood at a cottage, on a river, on a lake. You learned how to swim, you learned how to use boats, you just learned how to live in the outdoors. And a lot of us have had that experience, whether to be a large degree or a small degree. And it really, truly, truly is a wonderful way to grow up. I think I would be remiss if I didn't show you a painting by the Group of Seven. This happens to be Tom Thomson. And Tom Thomson, of course, was the man that helped the Group of Seven survive. You know, we think of all of the great North of Superior paintings and the lakes in Algonquin Park. If it wasn't for Tom Thomson, all of those men would have drowned and probably never heard of again. Tom Thomson was a woodsman. Tom Thomson was a man that knew how to live on the land, how to use the land, and he appreciated the appearance of the land. If you have a look at this painting, absolutely gorgeous work. You can see the spirituality in this painting. When you got so much sky and very little water and very little ground, but all that sky, much like a wonderful painting by Emily Carr. The sky is a spirit place. The sky is a positive place. And that's absolutely what this is all about. And it absolutely is tremendous. And there are moments up north, on a semi-cloudy day, you'll get skies that look like this. And even though it looks like rain, it doesn't happen. It threatens, but it doesn't take place. And this is absolutely a wonderful painting to demonstrate that by one of the great Group of Seven, Mr. Tom Thomson. The painting's called Summer Day. And so this would be a summer day, I think, in Algonquin Park somewhere. And absolutely tremendous. A bit of a swamp, as you can see at the bottom of the painting in the distance. But truly, truly a wonderful painting that represents this time of year. One of my favorite painters of all time is the great American painter Winslow Homer. Winslow Homer spent most of his life painting things that had to do with water. And he absolutely was enamored with it. In fact, his studio in New England was on the water, and he saw and looked at the Atlantic Ocean every single day. He also was a great outdoorsman. In fact, he spent a couple of years in Quebec on the rivers of northern Quebec, painting them, and the boats, the canoes, the deer, the moose. He absolutely was fascinated by the idea of water. And this painting is called Summer Night, and we have a couple dancing on a beach, some other people looking off in the distance, maybe there's a bit of a campfire in front of them, and that gorgeous silver moon on the water, and the water adding a little bit of soundtrack to their dance. Absolutely tremendous painting, and you don't need a lot of color for a painting like this. Sometimes Homer would paint like this. He would eliminate color and he would just give us the basics. And so here they are, lit by moonlight, maybe lit by a fire onto the right-hand side, and absolutely beautiful. beautiful, calm, silent painting, even though the sea seems to be whipped up a little bit. You could just imagine what it sounds like. Fantastic painting by the American Winslow Homer. There were a number of American painters that went to Paris. They went to France at the end of the 19th and beginning of the 20th century. This is one of them. This is by the great Mary Cassatt, and a painting by a great woman painter. And Mary Cassatt knew right away when she arrived in Paris that if she was going to compete, or let's say not even compete, just have her painting shown, she had to paint things and images and ideas and stories that had nothing to do with the Impressionists were painting. And so she chose paintings with women, young girls, mom and daughters, mom and grandmother, women at the theater. That was her oeuvre. And this is a great example of it. Mom and daughter out on the water, a small little rowing boat, ducks that are coming up to maybe have a bit of bread that the girls have thrown into the water. Again, a peaceful, relaxed painting. That's what summer should be about. And even in this time of cholera that we're living in, and I'm calling the COVID-19 the time of cholera, I kind of like it. It's a romantic way of thinking of it. That you get that peaceful feeling. You want that peaceful feeling. And I think that Mary Cassatt captures it quite beautifully here. There's a relaxedness. There's no rush. There's no hurry. Nothing about this. There's no threat. Everything is just beautiful and calm. And the paintings of Mary Cassatt. A painting by Edward Henry Pottees. And Pottees was a British painter. This is called At the Beach. And yes, indeed it is. And of course, children playing at a beach, they add their own soundtrack. They squeal and screech and yell and jump up and down. They just have a wonderful time. Children, like a good Labrador retriever, loves the water. They love to play with the water. They play in the sand. They sail boats, or they build castles, or whatever it is they want to do. They make snow angels, only we call them sand angels in the sand. Or they bury their fathers and mothers up to their necks in the sand. They just have a very, very wonderful good time. And this is a great example of that. And again, showing us the way we can regard and look at summer in this time of year. It doesn't have to be through, I'm a wizened adult and I know better, but as a young child. And the more we can think like a young child, the younger we will stay for a lot longer period of time. Well, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't show golf. So here's a golf ball in, grass not cut too thick. And, of course, the pin in the distance. And, of course, this is definitely our summer sport for sure, unlike the boys of summer, the baseball players. But golf. Now, I tried golf, and it was not bad. But I did it as a business expense, and then once I wasn't doing that business anymore, I gave it up. It got to be far too expensive. I had to get up far too early in the morning to get a tee time, and I just felt that I had better things to do with my time. But as Mark Twain said, a good walk spoiled. But for some people, it's the way of getting away from everything, getting away from the wife, the house, the children, the responsibilities, whatever it is, and just going out and having a good time. And there's some value to that. Absolutely, I cannot disagree. And so there it is, golf, one of the big deals that we do in the summertime. And some of you out there may very, very well love this game immensely. I think the 19th hole is my favorite hole on the golf course. Here's a painting by one of the Pre-Raphaelite painters, the British Pre-Raphaelites. One of my favorite painters of all time, and there's quite a number of them. I won't list them all. But this is by the great John William Godward. And this is a beautiful painting, a young woman sitting on a windowsill made of marble and picking some flowers. This happens to be called Summer Flowers, which is a good title. But you'll notice a lot of the background, they're very Greek and Roman looking. She is dressed very much in a Greek or Roman dress with a little apron around her and a headdress with maybe a Greek or Roman flavor to it, and the dark, dark, dark hair. The Pre-Raphaelites in England were very important painters, painted some of the most beautiful paintings on the planet. And they all had some relationship to Greek or Roman architecture, and they all were supposedly pre-Raphaelite. In other words, Raphael, the great Italian painter, they said this might have been what painting would have looked like before him. And so that's where their title comes from. No matter what the reason is, the fact is they painted primarily nothing but women, women that did not look at us, women who knew we were looking at them. And let's face it, in the summertime, we tend to do that more often. Women look at men and men look at women because we're wearing a lot less clothes. We're not, brown and gray and black coats that move. We actually look like men and women and dress accordingly. And so we observe, we watch, we're voyeurs, if you like. And the summertime brings that out in us big time. And here's a great example of that by John William Godward. This is a painting by the great Czech painter Alphonse Mucha, and this is called Summertime. A lot of paintings done by painters over the years have been women painted as the seasons. So summer, fall, spring and winter. There are a number of painters, millions of paintings like that, and this happens to be Muncha's idea. Now, Alphonse Mucha was a very important painter. Not only was one of the great painters that came from the Czech Republic, or Bohemia as it was originally known, then Czechoslovakia and so on and so forth, those European countries. They changed their borders and their names so many times, but then that man was being too greedy and decided to kill people to try to change borders. This is a very important painter. He was the first painter to take painting and use it as advertising. So, for example, the first major bottle of Taittinger champagne, the labels were made by Mucha. If the first tins that had cookies and chocolates in them, the tins were painted with paintings by Mucha. Absolutely fantastic painter, beautiful design, again, soft, gentle, peaceful, non-threatening. He spent most of his life in Paris. He had an open studio. People would come to his studio on a regular basis, and there'd be women sitting around, lying around, and they would chat and drink and eat. It was truly a remarkable place to be, and Mucha, a remarkable, wonderful painter. Monet, Claude Monet, and this is called Summer Landscape. This is near Giverny in France, off the River Seine. And again, you can see all those, you look at the clouds. These painters loved clouds. I wish I would know how to paint clouds. And of course, he picked this particular scene. This would have been a scene. He would have painted this from a boat. He had a boat that he would go out on the water and do all his original sketches and make note of all the colorings. So he's in the middle of this water, whether it be a lake or a river, I don't know. And he's painting accordingly what he sees reflected in the water. Painters love reflection, and the Impressionist painters especially loved reflection. And in some cases, you could feel like you want to turn the painting upside down. But this is wonderful. A lovely, lovely summer landscape, which is exactly what it's called, by Claude Monet. Well, this photograph speaks for itself, doesn't it? Wow, that looks like a delicious cold drink, whatever it might be, with a strawberry on top, and strawberries, of course, woo. The month of June wouldn't be complete without good fresh field strawberries. And of course, we have what looks like a pool beside it there. Wonderful. Doesn't that look inviting? You just want to kind of jump in and just enjoy the day, and to make sure there's a cold one, as they would say, standing by, ready for you. How summer is that? This is another great French painter. This is Renoir, and this is called In Summer. Again, flowers, grasses, beautiful. You might say, well, she's a little overdressed. Yes, we're talking at the 19th century here. A lot of people did not suntan. A lot of people did not go to the beach. In fact, a lot of people didn't go to the south of France for years and years and years until they built the casino. There was no reason to go there. It was a big swamp. But eventually people began to venture out. They began to realize that it could be quite comfortable lying in grasses and flowers. You have your umbrella. She's got on a lovely hat. And she's reading. She's taking time. She's enjoying herself. Again, the slowing down. And we have problems. Some of us have issues with that. Slowing down life enough that we actually get a chance to appreciate what's going on around us. And sometimes we used to think, well, when I get older, sometimes older people are worse than young people in slowing down. They just got to keep going, keep going, keep going. I think this young lady, she's got the idea. Well, doesn't this look like summer? And maybe you've been on a boat already this year. This is a very famous painting, of course, by Renoir. Red Wine in Summer, The Boating Luncheon. That's the actual title of the painting. Some people just know it as The Boating Party, but in fact, Red Wine in Summer, The Boating Luncheon. And all of these people in the painting, by the way, are models, painters, poets, musicians, all good friends of Renoir. And he was just fascinated by this collection of people. They're obviously having a very, very good time. The table is littered with food that's been eaten, food that will be eaten. Glasses are full, half full, partly full. Bottles are half empty. Some are still full. Just a wonderful gathering of friends. And this has been difficult for us this time of year, to have this kind of a gathering. Some people have been able to do it in the backyard with distancing involved. Some families have been able to all be together in the same house, so they've been able to do this on a regular basis. And this is something we're all looking forward to again at some point. As someone once said to me, well, phase 3 is happening now, so we can all go in restaurants and eat and go in bars and drink. And my answer is, well, that might be true, but I'm not going until I get a little shot in the arm that says I am safe from it, and everybody else does too. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. And I think it's always important to keep that in mind. I've been inside for by the time this presentation, about 140 days. I don't feel bad by it at all. I'm still alive. So that to me is sort of a priority number one. Anyway, Red Wine, The Boating Luncheon by Renoir. Well, I've talked a bit about cottages. Well, here we have one. We got a folks here, maybe that's a little island that they live on, and they've got their chairs and then a large cottage in the distance. And, folks with a bit of coin. The boathouses. You see a boathouse with 3 or 4 slips, you know that there's probably a lovely, beautiful cottage up in the hills there somewhere, buried well by the trees. And there are a lot of places like that in the Muskokas especially. Some of them are owned by Americans. A lot of them are owned by very wealthy Canadians. It's part and parcel of how you spend your life. I know some people that have spent the last 4 months at their cottage doing their work. And I think that's going to be part and parcel of the new age as it comes along as well, is that if you can do your job from your home or from your cottage or from a hotel, you're going to be starting to do that. Things are going to be happening online, and things are going to be a lot easier, a lot more relaxed again, and you can accomplish a great deal by being in a scene like that. How inspirational it is. You work for 2 or 3 hours, take a dip, have some lunch, work for 2 or 3 hours, take a dip, have some early 5 o'clock cocktails, and so forth and so on. It makes for an interesting life, still a productive one, and I think that that's going to be more and more and more the norm as we move forward, as we get out of this cholera. I wanted to show fishing, but I didn't want to show typical, a couple of people in a metal boat, with a little troller engine on. No, I thought I'd show fishing in an entirely different way, and this is a good example of it. This is Summer, painted in 1890 by Thomas Wilmer Dewing, D-E-W-I-N-G. If you want to look him up, he's quite a great painter. And what a wonderful painting. These 2 women, fully dressed, fishing. And you might say, what an oxymoron. Well, people didn't know you had to dress in certain clothing to go fishing. And I think that that's why the painter painted this. As these are probably 2 very strong and very high-willed women who said, no, I'm going to go fishing. It's probably a little pond somewhere on the property, or it might be beside a lake. But look at those lovely trees, the leaves, the sky, the grasses, and the ladies in their dresses. That would be a great painting for a fishing lodge with a bunch of macho men sitting around going, what the heck is that? Well, those are ladies fishing. That's the way to do it these days, boys. Wear your tuxedo and dip your line in the water. I smiled when I saw this painting, and I couldn't resist. Not much to say about this particular painting. It looks like a photograph. It's not. It's by Vladimir Vologov, a Russian painter. This is called Summer Breeze. And we would have had music with this entire presentation today, but there's just no way I could figure out technically how to do it. It's important to remember this is my maiden voyage, the first time I've actually attempted to do this. And so there'll be aspects of it that will be great and aspects of it that won't be. It's much like playing baseball when half your team is ill and sick and can't play. So you sort of have to have allowances for that kind of thing. A beautiful, beautiful painting. Summer Breeze. Absolutely gorgeous. It says everything we want to say about summer, I think. Well, a painting that's all too true these days. A pool, empty, nobody around it. The park in the background, empty, no one around it. Now, when I put this presentation together, this was what it was like. We're now, of course, at the state where pools are open and so forth. Not all, so you can go swimming if you want and so on and so forth. But there are still some that are still closed up like this, at resorts, still closed like this, and so I thought I would show it. But it's the possibility of what we could be doing, what we will be able to do at some point, and voila, there it is. It's like a tease, eh? This is a realist painting by a gentleman by the name of Eric Zenner, and this is called Summer by the Pool. I like this painting for a lot of reasons. One, because it's so subtle. It has a lot of story behind it, but nothing's being said. Water, a deck, a woman lying on it, away from us, another part of another deck, and then water in the distance, and then the sky. Very, very interesting the way he's broke this painting down. And if you're at a resort, this is the kind of image you might see. And of course, all those colors that are in the water are reflecting what the sky looks like directly over top of the pool. And we don't see those colors and we don't see those clouds in the distance, but over top of the pool, those are what are there in reflection. Quite an interesting, I like this painting a lot. It's a rather fancy backyard pool in someone's house, but what the heck? Yours may not be as fancy, but it doesn't really matter, does it? It's a body of water. You dive in it, you cool off, and it's fantastic. This is quite lovely. It's a very simple shape. You've got a lovely walk down area to get in, a little bit of water flowing from waterfalls that have been man-made, that have been created. Quite delightful. And I just thought it would be nice to give a photograph of a wonderful-looking pool that we may all desire, wish we had. Especially those that filled their pools in last year because there were too much trouble. I bet they wish they'd kept their pools for this summer, especially when they didn't know they were going to be home every day and they didn't know the weather was going to be so amazing. Having a pool now would be fantastic. And unfortunately, you can't invite all your friends over to enjoy it because that's just not on. The boys of summer. Yay, baseball. And there we have it. Bat, glove, and ball. And, of course, on the diamond with a base in the distance. This, of course, is a photograph, not a painting. We finally have it. It's finally up and running. Who knows how it will end up or how long they'll be able to go. That remains to be seen, as they say. But nonetheless, amazing. Baseball, a great summer sport. The boys of summer. A simple cottage. This could probably be on Kashi Lake. Lots and lots of rock, built right on the rock. When I was a child, this is what I experienced. My mother would rent a cottage for a week. We'd get out of Toronto and we'd go and stay at the cottage. And that's where I learned how to climb on. I loved climbing on rocks. Rocks and trees up north, the Canadian flag flying. It's very old and tattered. It's probably been there since this building was built. It's had a couple of additions, maybe a new porch on the outside, right next to the water. You easily slip in. And what a wonderful place, again, as I said, to grow up in a place like this. So you've got a patio that's open, and you've got a patio that's screened in. So if the black flies in June get to be too much and the mosquitoes, you can still sit outside, still enjoy, have your meals, spend hardly any time inside the cottage at all. I think people that have cottages, they might spend, the only time inside is probably sleeping, making their first breakfast, but then the rest of the day outside, except for going in for drinks and food, outside. It's fantastic. For some people enjoying the north, it's being in a canoe, silently paddling, two people out on a little bit of an adventure, following the shoreline, and just enjoying the quiet and the communing with nature. And sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes that's all you require. And again, that laid back, relaxed, enjoy the moment time. And here it is. It's waiting for us. Our paddles are on the dock. Our May Wests are on the dock. Our life preservers, and away we go. A canoe on the water. Beautiful time. Sometimes the best time to go canoeing is first thing in the morning. Here we have mist still rising from the lake, smooth as glass, just the ripples from his paddle, and enjoying nature. This is when you get to see the loons, you get to hear the loons, you get to see some fish jump, maybe some mayflies are beginning to gather on top of the surface. It really is a very lovely, interesting time, and only the sounds of nature and your paddle breaking the surface of the water, that's pretty romantic. Or you could do this. This is tubing. Oh, lots of noise, lots of loud, lots of fun, lots of screams of laughter, just having a jolly good time. And tubing has come a long way. Originally, it was an inner tube of a huge tire. Now they come in many shapes and sizes and colors. I saw one the other day. It actually had individual seats. When you blow it up, you have armrests and a back, and you sit comfortably in it, and comfortable until you turn over or you turn around corners. But they come in all shapes and sizes now, and it's become actually more popular than water skiing, because everybody can do this. I mean, unless you have a fear of water and speed, anybody can do this and have a jolly good time. You wear your life preserver, you fall out, you get back on, you keep going. It really is a great deal of fun. Tubing up at the cottage. Just another example. You got someone who's driving the boat and knows what they're doing. Every time you hit one of the wake of the boat, up in the air you go. Oh, how much fun is that? I mean, and for some people go, oh, I couldn't do that, I'd be scared. I've seen people say that, get back to shore and go, when can I go again? When can I go again? And so now we come to the end of a presentation. And I thought, what a wonderful way to end it. Two people together on a beach. I purposely picked them without their faces, so that could be any two people at all, sitting in comfortable chairs. The sun is setting directly in front of them. The sand is smooth and calm. The water has got just enough ripple and noise to accompany their good togetherness, and the sky bodes well for the next day. Beautiful bit of cloud. That kind of sums up summer for us, doesn't it? We really, really, really appreciate those moments. And hopefully all of you have had a chance in one way or another to have an appreciation for a moment like that. Those of you that have cottages that face west, you get a chance to appreciate that every single night. And we certainly have had some amazing weather to enable us to be able to appreciate that. I hope you have appreciated this presentation on the summer breezes, all the images that we could possibly gather to show you, and hopefully you'll appreciate and enjoy it, and it brings back memories for some, maybe of things to come and things you want to be able to do, especially when we get a chance to do it with any and all the friends we like. Anyway, thank you. I'm George Sanford, and it's been a pleasure doing this presentation, and I think I'm going to be able to take some questions and comments as we continue with this wonderful Zoom presentation. Thank you so much, everyone.
There it is.
Well, thank you, George. We'll now be open for questions for George on a housekeeping matter. If you want to ask a question, please raise your hand. And Gary Hindley will be looking for the hands, and we'll tell you when it's your turn. When he does recognize you, please go and unmute yourself. And after you've asked your question, please again mute. Okay, the first question will be from Kevin.
Yeah, okay, I've got a quick question here. George, you showed us some great photographs, as well as the paintings. And, do you think, given modern technology, that the camera will take over from the, the easel, the brush, the canvas? Where's that going, do you think? Are there people out there who want to continue to paint?
Well, can you hear me, Kevin?
I can.
Good.
I'm now put myself on
I
mute.
never know if I'm muted or not muted, and in some cases, people will love to mute me all the time, but there you go. Good question. Camera enables us to do an instantaneous photograph of something or someone and instantaneously have it. Painting gives us a chance to do the same thing, but we can't have it instantaneously. I think that painting, professional painters are not painting anymore. They're doing installations. They're sculpting. They're making large presentations. The weekend painter, Sunday afternoons, absolutely. People are still doing that, many, many, many. But what the cameras enable us to do is, with a simple understanding of basic technology, we can take beautiful images without having to brushes and canvas and paint and all that kind of good stuff and have the result. I think it's the result. In the 16th to the 19th centuries, people didn't worry about how quickly do I get my painting. I'll get it when it's done. And today, we tend to think quicker. What I call the McDonald's version of gratification. And so that would be my answer. Yes, canvases and brushes, but not necessarily by professionals. They're working on a much bigger scale now, and less oil and so on and so forth. Good question, Kevin. Thank you.
Another question?
Don't
Gary?
be bashful. Come on, guys.
Sean, go
You-
ahead and unmute yourself.
Are you on?
Here I am, Tom Bossler. Hi, George.
How you doing?
Great presentation.
Thank you.
A comment on cameras and painting. Someone, well, not more than once, they've said that I must have a great camera or a lot of good cameras, and I cringe. If that all it took, it would be a zoo. Pardon my grandfather clock ringing in the background. I just got it going after 3 days. I'm now in Huntsville. I've moved to Huntsville, so we're resettling somewhat here in our house.
Well, that's okay. It accompanied your question beautifully.
Yeah.
You're right. There's a difference between taking snaps and taking a photograph. And the photograph involves art. And the snap, anybody could do that with a disposable camera. So you're quite right. You made a very good point there. And we all know when we see a beautiful photograph, there's been a lot of work involved in doing that. But the sameness of photography and painting is we have to use our eyes and how we see and how we translate that. Both of those mediums require, hopefully, a creative mind. Good question. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just quickly throw in here, there's a whole lot of music I wanted to play. Antonio Vivaldi, Summer, Delius's Summer, The Boys of Summer by the Eagles, Summertime by Jazzy Jeff, Summer in the City by The Loving Spoonful, and of course the song Summertime by George Gershwin. That all would have been part of the soundtrack if there had been one. So just thought I'd throw that out there. If you're looking for summer songs, have at your next backyard party.
I take it you didn't want to sing that, did you, George?
No. I've been asked politely by many to, unless I have all my keyboards and my electronic stuff in the studio set up, no. I wouldn't want to ruin a good piece of music.
Do you have any more questions?
I'll ask a question, George.
Go ahead.
The pictures that you showed were over a period of time and different styles, and
Yeah.
you seem to appreciate all of them and pointed out the characteristics of them. Do you have a favorite style that you enjoy?
Favorite style? I would say romantic. Any romantic painter. Caspar David Friedrich, the German painter. Pre-Raphaelite painters in Great Britain in the 19th century. And totally the opposite of that. I like some of the American abstract painters. Not all, but some. Jackson Pollock I thoroughly enjoy. So it's kind of anything pre-18th century doesn't really interest me. And a lot of modern work in the 21st century, no. But sort of in that nice zone for me, 18th to early 20th century. There's so many painting styles that, it gets a little overwhelming sometimes. So I have to do it by painters, not by style.
Okay.
Good question, though. Thank you.
Stan Rogers. Stan Rogers.
Go ahead, Stan.
Hi, Stan. Haven't seen you in a long time. How are you?
I haven't seen you. The last time I saw you when we were with Footnotes and you were taking a masterclass in how a bunch of us would sing and move on
Thanks for reminding me of that.
yeah, well, so I still remember it, so that's good. I hesitated to say anything because unfortunately, as the group here will tell you, I am unfortunately well known for asking questions and asking bloody awful questions, should we say. But you've hit a very fascinating part of my life. This is where I start boasting. You see, I'm 93 now.
Congrats.
As with you, I started acting and singing at age 10, 11. I've gone through all sorts of stuff like that. I'm interested when I watch TV anymore at the speed at which the images move, at the speed at which the people speak. Now, with the presentation you made, which I enjoyed very much because of the images you used. Now, could you just slow it down a little? Maybe it's me. You see, I know, for example, my wife is 2 years older than I, and there is a certain amount of dementia. And this is also affecting my processing speed. And what I'm finding now is that when I watch images, for example, TV, I sometimes turn off the sound and turn on the captioning, which goes much slower because I can follow it much more. It's just what this is what you've been doing all your professional life. I don't know whether any comments you'd like to make on what's going to happen. You see, you've got a bunch. You've got a rather unusual bunch with probers. The amount of professionalism and the amount of past experience in here and in the members is amazing. Now, I don't know what I've just said about speed, etc., that sort. Have you any observations you'd like to make on that?
A very good observation. I have sometimes been very guilty myself of talking too fast. My reasoning for that is because I'm very passionate about the things that I know. And so sometimes I'm like a train. I just go down the track and I just keep barreling on. So in that respect, you're right. Backing off a little bit would not hurt me at all. The other reason that things work much faster on television is, again, it's that 30-second McDonald's aspect of the world. Quick clips shot with a camera, fast, if you look at news broadcasts, it's soundbite, 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 soundbite. And unless you're really tuned in, and if there's an accent involved, sometimes that's even worse. You can't pick it up. That, unfortunately, is what technology has done. It's sped things up. It's made things move along, and sometimes to its detriment. So you're quite correct. And as far as the speed thing goes, you're right. When I slow down a bit, I'm less exhausted at the end of a class, and I should self-flagellate. I did it again. But I get so because I don't use notes ever. I just kind of get going. I get rolling. So you've made a very, very, very astute observation, and you would be correct.
Okay.
And it's lovely to see you again.
You too. Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Any more questions?
Hearing none, we'll now start to bring the meeting to a close. And I want to thank you, George, for your engaging presentation.
Well,
and
can I just say one more thing?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks to Bob, and Gary. Thank you for your patience in helping me get to this point. And it truly, without you, this would not have happened. And so I am very honored to be involved and to be asked. Thank you, Kevin. And just a big thanks to everybody for this to happen. This, of course, is what I love to do. This is what my classes are like. And so I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, George. And you can feel free to leave the meeting any time. And this presentation is something that we may want to revisit on YouTube and in the winter time when it's cold and wintry outside to bring us back to a summery time.
I'll say goodbye and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, George. Again,
Thank you.
to all those members present today, I want to thank you in advance for attending. The session has been recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube by Bob Lalonde within a couple of days, and you'll be notified of when it is loaded and available. After we conclude the formal part of the meeting, we're going to conduct a couple of online poll questions and then move into breakout sessions as we did last meeting. And we look forward to hearing your opinions, and we'll present the results immediately following. I want to encourage you to remain for these activities. The formal part of the meeting has now ended, but please stick around. The date of the next meeting is Thursday, September 17th, and you'll be notified on how to connect, and we trust there'll be fewer technical difficulties getting in at that time.